Hello and welcome to Flourish After 50, a podcast that supports women navigating change to create a life that feels more true, more intentional, and more your own. I'm Sue West, coach and facilitator of small group programs, and today I'm talking with Janine Hayes, a capable, adventurous woman who's a business leader in Gippsland, Victoria, and alongside running businesses, she's pursued a long-standing passion for skydiving. So much so that last year, after 45 years of leaping out of planes, she was recognised as one of Australia's most accomplished members of the Australian skydiving community when she was honoured with the Medal of the Order of Australia for her contributions to the sport. But today we're talking about a different kind of leap. After caring for her husband through illness and losing him in January last year, Janine is now rebuilding her life and career in her mid-60s, which she's described to me as akin to doing a jigsaw puzzle on quicksand. Janine, welcome.
Thank you very much, Sue, and I appreciate your very kind introduction.
Thank you. And before we get into talking about that jigsaw puzzle, I wonder if you could talk to me for a moment about skydiving. I'm really curious to know what first drew you to jumping out of aeroplanes, which for me feels like an absolute nightmare.
Well, I wrote a poem when I was 13, and it very much sounded like I knew what I was talking about. And it's actually a little bit of a metaphor for life. So it's been a poem that's dear to me and was a passion. I used to look out of the bedroom window when I was very young and think, oh, I'm going to be up there one day, and just followed my dreams. And that's how I got here.
Wow, so that was something that you were drawn to from a really young age.
Yes, very, very young. Well, 13, you're adolescent, everything's changing. And I called it my freedom skyway. So it was,
Ah.
it really has actually been true to that. And that has provided me with the passion over the years. And it's also been my happy place. So it's been something that I've always been able to go to when I wanted to not think about all the other things that were happening.
Yes, well, I look forward to talking with you a little bit about that skydiving journey as we talk about other parts of your life. But how old were you when you did your first jump?
I went to do it when I was, I think it was 20. And then what happened was I was in my first job. I was a teacher's aide. I'd taken out a loan, and my stepfather had been guarantor so I could get a car. And the course cost $90 to do the whole course. And I only earned $90 a week. So there was a bit of rationalising. And then down the track, I was doing welfare at what was the Monash Gippsland Institute of Advanced Education, and I'd found out we used to play basketball against the prisoners. They before they were released out of the Moore River prison farm, and I was playing basketball, and one of the guys on the team said his sister had gone and done a parachute jump, and I was absolutely like, how could she do that? And I haven't done it. So I found out where she was and raced off to find her and got all the details, and the rest is really history. I signed up, did my first jump course the following weekend.
Oh, fantastic. And all these years later, I did, in my kind of research in preparing for today's conversation, I was looking you up online and I could see how the community was celebrating your achievement last year when you received that honour. What a special occasion for you.
Oh, I was totally humbled because anything I've done in the sport has always been to help other people. And I mean, it's for my own pleasure as well, but I get a lot of joy out of teaching people to skydive. I'm a senior instructor. I've held a chief instructor's rating when I ran my own skydiving business for 12 years. But it's really watching people flourish. And it's interesting that your podcast is Flourish Over 50. I love that. But I do remember a woman that came to jump with us some time ago, long time ago, and I was younger than her at the time, and she was turning 50. and her name was Roberta. I've never met her again since, and I always used to wonder. She landed, she was so ecstatic about her achievement and her what she'd done, and she just enjoyed it so much that I cried, she cried, and I was always wondered, I hope she went on to do other things and flourish even more after 50. So yeah, it was
Yes.
there's been some magical moments in skydiving, and it is a community, so it's brought me a lot of
Mm.
joy.
Yeah. So, could we fast forward then from those early days of skydiving to what life was looking for you? I think it was at 2019 when your husband was diagnosed with a serious condition, and perhaps tell us what life looked like for you before that diagnosis.
Well, what's interesting, Sue, is in 2017, Ken and I went to America as part of this Aussie Big Ways record, and we did what we call 119 way. So there was 119 of us in the air. Sorry, that was 2015. And then we were working towards, I was in the background helping and mentoring, and we were working towards participating in 2019 on 130 way. And that year was a year of lots of grief. We had nursed my stepfather and my mother. They had died earlier in the year. We had lost other family members. It was just a roller coaster year of grief. So we trundled off to America in 2019, and Ken wasn't able to jump then. He was just not well enough. We weren't really sure what was going on, but he wasn't well enough to participate. And we did the 130 way record. But he came over, and I took him on a trip. We went to Yosemite National Park. We did 4,500 miles up the west coast of the States and visited old friends of his. We'd done that previously in 2015. And, we just got back from the States, and in November there had been the indication of an early Alzheimer's diagnosis, which in some ways gave me the opportunity to go, oh, that's what I'm dealing with. But then it continued, and it turned a little bit pear-shaped into 2020, as we know. So we had fires locally, which I was dealing with through my employment as an industry development manager, and then COVID, and then we continued on through 2020 until we ended up with Ken's frontotemporal dementia and motor neurone disease diagnosis, which was, yes, just another level altogether.
What did that mean for you at the time?
I don't think I actually dealt with that at the time, Sue. I think in retrospect, I just got on with what I had to do, and that was to look at how do we go forward, what happens, just even getting Ken's diagnosis, probably because I was a bit more tenacious and had the skill set that other people don't have. It usually takes 2 years to get a diagnosis of MND, just because it looks like lots of other things some of the time. And I just was relentless in trying to pursue different avenues. And we had the diagnosis inside, a year, which
Oh,
is
wow.
quite, yeah. But there was a lot of tears, there was a lot of research, there was a lot of advocating, always with different medical appointments, was asking the next question. Oh, do you have a cancellation? Instead of being told, oh, it'll be 2 or 3 months, I'd say, oh, well, have you got a cancellation? Oh, actually, we do. Oh, we don't operate in Warragul anymore. Well, we come to Melbourne? Yes, you can. So it was always this push, which was really quite frustrating, tiresome, and just a real grind. So, yeah, I just always reflect and feel for people who've had to go through that process without the skill sets that I was fortunate to have.
Mm.
I remember the geriatrician saying to me, go home and research a neurologist. And so I found Monash Medical, rang them up, and this was in 2000, early to 2020, and they said, "Oh, we haven't got through our 2018 wait list yet."
Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
so I closed the computer, howled my eyes out,
Yeah.
opened the computer and started again. And fortunately, I was able to track down Bethlehem, Bethlehem Calvary Healthcare, and through their process, we were able to get things happening in a way that allowed us to get a quicker diagnosis. But it was awful. It was really awful. So, and I feel like I was lucky in that process. So
Mm.
that was always that double-edged sword, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ken was lucky to have you on his team by the sounds of it, in terms of being someone who was able to advocate and, I just kept got the image of, putting your big girl pants on to step into this role of needing to kind of push forward and push through to get the support and get the answers that you needed. I'm curious about what I mean. All of that takes a lot of time. Certainly, the clients that I have who are caring for someone in their own lives, or have medical conditions themselves, they tell me that takes quite a bit of their time. So, what did that mean for you, and work and skydiving and family and all the other things you'd really enjoyed doing?
I think it does take a lot of time. I was fortunate that I was able to, it took me a while to let work know what was going on, but we were also dealing with fires and COVID and my role. So that was probably a relief in some way, to be busy during the day with that and in the background be doing the other things. So I was probably running on um, a high level of batteries that I didn't really have. I learnt later on that you do have to top them up. They require recharging, but that took me a little while to sort of come to that. But I had good family, friends and support, and I had people that I could go to. But it did result in me slowly, over the period of time that Ken was unwell, to pull back my own career and work life, and I was very well supported by the company that I worked for. They were brilliant, but it still means that you kind of lose yourself and you just get on with what you're doing, and opportunities that may have come and gone came and went. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So a
So
little
I
bit
think
more in the present, and in um, the word coming to my mind is survival mode. It's perhaps what word would you use to
I
describe that
use
phase for you?
resilience, Sue. I think
Resilience.
you
Yeah,
just I think you have to get up the next day, and you just
yeah.
got to continue to get up. And as I say, I was in a completely different situation. I always say that I I was a carer. It took me a while to actually acknowledge that. In fact, I did not go near that label for some time. I found that really hard to deal with. But I mean, I look at people who have cared for children with a disability over a huge amount of time, and then are considering their own mortality and what happens to, I just couldn't imagine being in those shoes. So I actually felt like I was fortunate, as opposed to it. But it was just, I think it was just about being resilient. It's
Yeah.
part of our DNA in our family.
Yeah, okay. And so when in that kind of acute phase, what place did skydiving have, if any, during that time for you?
Yes, well, it did, Ken's care did intensify, and I did have life lessons I'd learnt through helping to care for my stepmother and stepfather and mother for the previous 18 months. So skydiving was always what I called me running off to the circus. So I was able to make
That's a funny
opportunities.
expression. Tell me about this.
Well, I mean, in circus, as in, that adventurous, that, everyone wants to run off to the circus when they're younger. And I probably have just spent my whole life doing that. and coming back to reality. So it was my escape, and I tried to manage to keep doing it within reason. So there were things within skydiving that I pulled back on, and one of those is we have a role as a drop zone safety officer. So I relinquished that because I didn't feel like I could be responsible for other people, let alone just myself. So I pulled back on some things, and on other things I just went, no, I'm going to go and do that. And I think that was where I learnt, and in reflection about talking about topping up your batteries, I realised with lots of care and support and discussions with many family and lots of friends, that I really had to put my own oxygen mask on a lot of the time to help out when I needed to. And I wasn't, to be honest, Sue, I wasn't the best version of myself all the time. I'm not, I don't want to Pollyanna this, because I wasn't. There were times when I was just not the nicest person on the planet. But I think that's the stress that comes with looking after someone. And there was an analogy I use, and I'm a very visual person, but life, was this piece of string, and Ken's was coming to an end, but we didn't know when. And so that was the unknown, is always really hard to fathom and to work through. So, yeah, there was lots of interesting times and discussions and reflections, and I tried to journal to sort of give myself a bit of an outlet for some of the things that I was thinking or writing about.
It's interesting that sort of that string metaphor that you just used, because that that points to that level of uncertainty, which most of us don't do very well with uncertainty. And you just described journaling. Were there other things that helped you cope with that uncertainty?
I think it was more around being able to access the natural environment. We live in a lovely place on acreage, so we've always got bird song and different animals around. So being able to get out and about, we tried to do lots of walks when we could and go down to the beach and things like that. So, and the skydiving environment itself is outdoors. You're in an aeroplane, you're 10,000, 12,000 feet above the ground. And one of the things about the jumping side of things is you can't be thinking about something else. You have to give it your all. So that allows that to disappear. Whatever's happening to you just is peeled back and is not considered in that moment, because you have other things you need to be concerned about and also to participate in. And so you put your all into that moment. So that, yeah, that's how I got through lots of it.
Yeah, that focusing in the present moment is always, I think, the antidote to uncertainty. And it sounds like that you had lots of things that you were able to access that brought you into the present time.
Yes, and I mean, I'm the sort of person, a lovely sunset, if I see a bird, it's about going, wow, look at that, and appreciating this. And you're right, the present is all we have. If you're not in the moment, then, you're not actually living. You're hoping for something else. And there was a lot of hope. There was a lot of hope, certainly. And there was, yeah, it was just a really, I'm further on than I was, and in some ways I can be right back there in an instant. So it's an interesting time, but it's individual to everyone. And I would never, while I can share my experience, I would never assume to know what it's like for someone else, because
Someone
it's
else, yeah.
entirely different for everybody,
Yeah.
regardless of what happens to them.
And so you finally lost Ken in January last year after caring for him right to the end. Can you take us back to that period in your life and what that was like for you, just briefly?
Look, it was hard. it it was it was always conflicted. I'm still conflicted. Ken ended up going into care towards the end, even though I was with him. Um, I was in there, every day. If I wasn't someone else, I had other people go in. But yeah, it was hard. It was hard. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of getting my head around all of it, Sue, even at this point. And I think it's interesting for people that because everyone moves on. You lose someone, doesn't matter who it is in your family pet, your family members, and people, their lives move on, and you're still trying to move forward, but you're still grappling with what's actually happened to you. And initially, it's a bit surreal. I mean, I probably walked around in a complete, pardon me, fog and daze for weeks.
Mm.
You sort of meandering through. I think at the time, and we talked, you mentioned the jigsaw puzzle on quicksand. At the time, when I was caring for Ken, I would use the analogy that it's like being on a sawtooth with a wave going through it. You were never sure whether you were going down, you'd hit a point, you were going up. And it was kind of this different waves and ebbs and flows. And now it's more like that. My cousin would say it's more like a treacle effect, that jigsaw on quicksand. You're kind of trying to put pieces back together, but you're not sure if they all line up. And I think time is a healer, but it doesn't take away what's happened. So I think I, I'm not making assumptions on anyone else's behalf, but you can put yourself back in those situations pretty easily.
Mm. Yeah. So how what I don't even know how to ask this question, Janine, but what I'm wondering is
We just ask.
yeah, well, I guess I'm thinking in this quicksand, uh, what do you draw upon? Because you need to keep going, and you need to keep putting one foot in front of the other and kind of hold on to what's past and create what's new and what's coming. And I just wonder what you draw upon for yourself that enables you to do that.
Well, I think for me, Ken he always said he had a great life. He was 10 years older than me. He'd traveled the world, was full of stories. He was a great storyteller, and people loved him. He was amiable, he was friendly, and he would not want me to be not living. And even though you don't understand what you're going to go through with this type of grief, he would not want that. And so to honour my own life, not just his, it's incumbent to get up every day and try and do something and make a difference. And I think that's that goes back to the fact that I don't see this as a rehearsal for another opportunity down the track. I see this as the one chance you get. And, we all have good days, we all have bad days. We have good moments, we have bad moments. But it's, the only thing I can do is to make the most of what time I have left and to make a contribution in a meaningful way, regardless of where that contribution takes me. So I'm that's what keeps me getting up. And I have beautiful family and friends and grandchildren, so I've got everything to keep going for.
Mm.
It
Mm.
sounds easier than it is, and
Yeah.
I really don't want it to come across that because I know for other people it's not the same. It's not the same journey for them. It can be just beyond what they can cope and comprehend, and so I don't know. I just think we've come from good old Irish hardworking stock, and that's our motto, you know. Our Hayes family name is nil without labour. So I often reflect on that and think, good on you, whoever wrote that one.
So, in this kind of reckoning or this kind of needing to keep moving forward on your own life as well, are there new things that have come out of this time and this experience for you in terms of what you're doing now?
There are. I've sat. I've had a year off. I resigned from my position and I ran away to the circus. I went overseas and jumped last year, uh, and then sadly, at the start of the year, my aunt, who I'm very close to, passed away. And so that probably set me back in some ways that I hadn't realised it would. And now I'm looking at restarting my business and moving into that space and having a chat with you, Sue, and getting out and about and looking at other things. I'm volunteering at the local community garden at the moment and just looking for other different directions for my life. But who knows? Something will happen. And my favourite word is serendipitous. So I'm expecting that there'll be some serendipitous occasions that pop up into the future. Last year, I was fortunate to speak at the Dementia Research Forum in Perth and was able to give my perspective as a carer. And then this year, I'm going to be speaking at the Austin Hospital towards the end of the year to a group of professionals there. So, yes, I'm looking at lots of different avenues, but it's really about providing some sort of context for myself as to what's happened to me, you know, and if I can help someone else along the way with what I've learned, then that's really, really important to me. I'm involved locally with my previous role as a mentor for a couple of young women in the tourism industry space. So that keeps me chatting to younger people and understanding what their goals and aspirations are. And I just give them a little bit of sage advice every so often, but it's lovely to see them flourish. So it's opened up other opportunities for me to do things.
We'll be back to the show in just a moment. If you have a sense that something's changing, but you can't quite see what comes next, I'd love to invite you to my free online workshop, The Messy Middle Method. It's a practical 1-hour session for women who feel stuck in the in-between, when the old way no longer fits and the next chapter is still emerging. I'll be sharing the approach I've developed through 5 years of coaching at Flourish After 50. And it's the approach that I'm applying in the Flourishing in the Messy Middle program, also starting later in September. So come along, learn a bit about the approach I'll be taking. There are 2 sessions to choose from on the 7th and 8th of September. You'll find all the details in the show notes or at flourishafter50.com.au. Now back to the show. My sense is that you're not being someone who's just skydived or run a business. You've also been really involved in the communities of those worlds. So, you know, we've talked a little bit about the skydiving community, and I know that you've been involved in the in a leadership role with Gippsland businesses. Is that something that you're continuing today?
Yes, well, I just spoke yesterday and I just presented on behalf of the skydiving to some participants who are at the Victorian Tourism Industry Council conference. So that was nice to have a chat to them and just talk about the involvement with skydiving and the visitor economy. And so, yeah, I'm still keeping my hand in different pots. I'm a bit too eclectic to stick with one thing definitively too. So, but
I think we
skydiving,
call that a portfolio these days, Janine.
But I've also, from a skydiving point of view, I've just been, and I'm absolutely over the moon, even though I've done quite a lot with the big ways. I've just been asked to participate on a women's 8-way team. So we're going to be training to go to the Nationals next year. So it's lovely to be with like-minded women. And no, they're not. I think I'm the only one at this point over 50, but the others are heading towards 50 and flourishing, Sue.
That's fantastic. So I'm assuming an 8-way is 8 people together
That's it,
in
yes.
some form of configuration.
We
Can you
make
tell
pretty
us?
patterns in the sky.
How
And then
magical.
and then
Well,
we have a red wine after.
okay. It's like a book group except jumping out of planes. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, yes. And I do have a book group as well. I have a couple of skydiving friends. We have a regular book club as well. So trying to just keep myself busy doing lots of different things. So
Mm, yeah.
but only it's all supported because I have fabulous family and fabulous friends. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am today. And they've been
Mm,
my rocks. So it's that old analogy, isn't it? You put all your big rocks in the jar first, and even though and I think going back to one of your other questions around what happens to you in that space is I think you feel like you lose your identity, especially around your work and your career. But when push comes to shove, it is only your work and your career. And the other things that are more meaningful for me are the relationships I have with family and friends. And
mm,
they're the things that will sustain you. I think it's lovely to have a career and to be able to do something of purpose, but I'm not sure that when it's really at the end that's what really counts. It's how kind you've been or how you've made someone else feel as opposed to what you might have achieved. So um while I was ecstatic to receive my award, it was very humbling, and I wouldn't have received that if it wasn't for all the other people around me. So it wasn't an award just for me; it was for others as well.
mm, that's a beautiful recognition, Janine, and I think that's true for anyone who wins those awards. Everyone's achievements are, predicated on their inputs of lots of other people. Mm.
Mm.
So, if you were, I mean, certainly there will be women listening today who may well be finding themselves in a carer's role now or in the future. What would you say are the kind of the big takeaway lessons from your experience?
Oh, I think get some professional help earlier. It, family and friends are great, but you can wear out the welcome. And you can't do it on your own as much as you think you can. And I was one of those people, you really do have to put your own oxygen mask on, and that could be all manner of things, whether it's getting your hair done, your eyebrows, your nails, walking on a beach, taking time out, but seeking some sort of professional help if you need to. Or I wasn't um, great with joining a carers group because I knew that I wasn't in the right brain space I would want to take on other people's problems. So I put a bit of a boundary, and I think boundaries are important. You have to know what you're capable of doing and what you're prepared to accept. There's lots and lots of adjustments, especially if someone's got other people coming into their home to help with their loved one. There's just that whole personal space, confidentiality. It's a bit of a um, it's a bit of a prism of different aspects, and I think it's really important that, and this is not something that I've come up with, but it's a philosophy, you know, care for self, care for others, care for the world. And I think it's really hard to be selfish. And I think women are very good at putting others first and letting themselves, and you end up just too frayed. And like I said, I was never always the best version of myself. And that was probably because I was trying too hard to do everything. So I
Yeah.
think it's really important to care for yourself and to not feel guilty or guilted by other people's commentary. And other people's commentary, in fact, what other people think of you is none of your business. And it's hard not to take it on, but you can't let other people judge what you're doing because they're not there 24/7 and living the life that you're living. So I think it's really important that women look after themselves.
Yeah. It sounds like an acute focus on what really matters to me right now and how do I support myself in that. Because when you were talking about the people coming and going from the house, I was thinking, yes, there's some necessary stuff around that for the person you're caring for, but there's also some absolutes that you would want for yourself that, you know, might not have even come up for you before, but you become acutely aware of that in this time of heightened attention to what supports you and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I can give a really practical example there. And I often think, why was I so? But just thank you very much for folding the washing, but please don't put my stuff into my room. It's like, that's just like, I'm happy to pick it up off the kitchen table and take it to my room myself.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but you've got to know what you want, but you don't always do know, because I think that's the other thing, Sue, that I would say is the space to think is not always there. So you're making decisions on the fly a lot, or you're just not even taking the time to think about something because you feel like it has to be done. And so I think, you know, creating those boundaries or understanding what you want in that space is important, which is where I like the power of the pen. You know, write things down, get it from your head to your hand to the page, and try and write what you think you need or what you don't need. But even if you just write a blurb to get it out of your head, that's enough to maybe deal with that situation.
Yeah, really important messages there. And for someone, I mean, you've probably given us some insights already, but I'm wondering if there's anything else that for someone who's the friend of a carer, and now we know we can fold their clothes and not take it in their bedroom, but are there other sort of messages that you would want the friends of carers to know about this time?
Someone who's in a high stress caring situation, they don't know what they want because they can't think that far. So saying, "Oh, what can I do to help you?" Okay, maybe it's just, "I'd like to come in and clean you this today," or "I'd like to do that for you," or "I'd like to," just framing it in a different way that actually gives that person the opportunity to go, "Oh, that would be nice," or "No thanks," or "Yes please," or whatever. But I think it's very hard for someone who doesn't know what they want. Some people do. I mean, I was often had so many things that I needed to do that anyone offering to do something was not really helpful because I didn't know what to tell them. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. So at the
Mm.
beginning of this conversation, I mentioned, you know, this is a new leap for you. And I guess in hearing your story today, I'm hearing lots of leaps that you've taken, both in terms of that kind of the time of diagnosis, the time of all of the time of adjusting as things were changing, and then at the end of his life, and you're continuing to navigate this time. What would you say 18 months down the track is the message you would want to leave women with who are listening to this today?
I think it's keep going. However that looks, just keep going, keep getting up, keep showing up. I mean, there was times when you just don't want to keep going, but I think it's, and be kind to yourself. Being kind to yourself is really important. And you can only do what you can do at the time.
What are the things that are, you and I have talked previously about the importance of hope, and I wonder what hope looks like for you right now.
Can I read you a poem I wrote, Sue?
Oh, yes, please.
This is something I wrote in March, and I guess it probably sums up how I was thinking at the time and how I'm moving forward. You come and go like an ocean tide, waves of gentle rhythm, thoughts of great times and laughter. Then the crushing, crashing waves envelops, and I am left floored, not floating, in serene bubbles of froth, but tossed and turned in turmoil of what could have been. What could have been more, not what was less, but more or less, and no floating, floundering waves washing over the wretched. Then beyond the blue I see an eagle soar, majestically, magically reminding me of what is more and what might become more. Life has further treasures to offer, and as I flounder less, I float on untold tides towards a beckoning shore of lapping waves and untold possibilities.
Oh, that's beautiful, Janine. Thank you so much for reading that. I can hear the emotion in your voice as you're sharing that. It's making me feel really emotional as well, and I really appreciate in that the turmoil and the beauty and all of the things that you've been talking about today rolled into that poem, and then the shore of possibility. Beautiful.
Thanks, Sue.
As we finish today, if there was one thing you could change about how society sees women over 50, what would it be?
That they're not invisible, that they have value, that they're forces of wisdom, and that if they've lived such amazing lives, those lives should be shared and recognised and acknowledged. Someone once told me that age is an achievement, not an affliction. And
yeah, that's great. Yes.
And Ken's favourite one was wrinkles are experience lines. So just be proud of the life you've lived and live each moment, and all the best.
Janine, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing in kind of a really open way about your experience and the various challenges, but also the beautiful parts of your life. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sue, and a shout out to anybody who's a carer out there. You have my untold, undying admiration.
Thanks for listening to Flourish After 50. If today's conversation resonated and you're ready to take the next step, you can work with me one-on-one as your coach, join my 6-week program, or be part of a monthly discussion group where we get deeper into some of the topics on this podcast, the Flourish After 50 Circle. You'll find the details and links at flourishabafter50.com.au or in the show notes. I'd also love your support. Follow the show on your favourite podcast app, share this episode with a friend, and leave a review. It helps more women discover Flourish After 50 and start their own journey towards what's next. This episode was recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present.